And we're back talking rosters. Like I said, it's going to be a very busy month of November with Canadian roster drops, Ghanaian roster drops, conversations on the sides on both teams. But let's get into this. Canada just dropped their Bahrain friendly. So if you're not familiar, Canada has scheduled a friendly with Bahrain for mainly domestic players. So looking at what we thought was going to be CPL and MLS players, but the roster turns out is just MLS players. We're going to talk about it. Instead of just saying what we think, we'll do what we normally do, talk about what we see from this roster. But we'll also go into players who have something to gain and also players who have something to lose. And we'll kind of name a couple, not a specific set of numbers, but we'll go from there. So the roster is as follows. Goalkeepers, Maxime Crépeau, James Pantemis, and Dane St. Clair. And after that, you have defenders, Daniil Henry, Lucas McNaughton, Kamal Miller, Joel Waterman, Zachary Broguillard, Raheem Edwards, Alistair Johnson, Richie Larea. Midfielders, Mathieu Choinière, Liam Fraser, Mark Anthony Kay, Ishmael Kone, Jonathan Osorio, Samuel Piet, and then up top, Jacob Schaffelberg, Ayo Akinola, Lucas Cavallini, and Jaden Nelson. Whew. This is an interesting roster. Not so much forward heavy. Only technically 2 wingers and 2 strikers. So you could see maybe a 4-1-1. More than likely, you're going to see some sort of a 5 in the middle midfield. So whether that's a 3-5-2, a 3-5-1-1, a 4-5-1, I think that's more than likely what you're going to see, especially with the amount of midfielders that you have. I think it could make sense, and also more than likely a low-key one that they could use is a 3-4-1-2 or a 3-4-2-1 with supporting forwards or attacking midfielders in that sense. But yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. I think I'm 3% surprised that there's no MLS showings. I know people will tell me, well, what about Lucas McNaughton and Joel Waterman? Yes, they came from the MLS, but right now they came from the CPL, but right now they're MLS players. So I don't consider themselves CPL. Yes, CPL is their roots, but I look at them as, okay, you've played and you show you're at the level. No one's made that jump from the CPL to the national team as of yet, so that's why I don't really count it. So again, looking at this roster, 3 goalkeepers, the backs, this will be very interesting to kind of break and see how they play. I think in the press conference afterwards, John Herman did also mention he's looking to go probably 16 to 17 players getting the majority of the minutes. So again, you're 5, which basically does mean, if you look at it, if you want to eliminate players, a simple way to eliminate players would be, probably Jaden Nelson won't see much, Ayo Akinola won't see much, Mathieu Choinière won't see much, and then Raheem Edwards may not see much, and then probably Lucas McNaughton may not see much. That's just my assumption. 21 players. I've just taken 5 players who have been in camps before and haven't played as much. And I think the majority is going to go through really the Montreal boys, in my opinion. So Joel Waterman, Kamal Miller, Alistair Johnston. Let's get to who this game matters to. We can go through this, but let's just get straight to the meat and potatoes here. Player who has a lot to, I don't think, in my opinion, they should have a lot to lose here, but I think they're going to the World Cup anyways. Daniil Henry, especially with the injury to Scott Kennedy, the center backs get very interesting to keep an eye on. So McNaughton, Waterman. I think the starters are Johnston, Victoria, and Miller. So those 3 will get some run more than likely. But the question will be, who is the next center back off the bench? Based off of, to be perfectly honest, based off of just form, it should be Derek Cornelius. Some people may say, maybe Joel Waterman should get the nod ahead. We'll see. I think if it's either Waterman or Cornelius, I don't have an issue. If it ends up, I have a feeling though, suspiciously, that it ends up being Daniil Henry. He is a player. I always refer back to that last window for World Cup qualifiers. Victoria was injured to a degree, and they didn't have healthy center backs. But against Costa Rica, he essentially played. Herdman essentially played Atiba as a center back. Against Jamaica, you had Kennedy, you had Victoria, and I believe it was Miller who played. And then when you went back down to Panama, you didn't have Cornelius play. I feel that says a lot, but the next center back is going to be very interesting to watch. Johnson should be getting minutes, but yes, whoever gets those minutes in between Waterman, McNaughton, as well as Danielle Henry will be interesting to watch in terms of what goes down. In terms of other players for us to really come through, Liam Fraser is the only non-MLS player here. Now, he is a player who has been there depth-wise. I think he is probably the backup. When we didn't have Stefan Eustachio in our February window, Liam Fraser, my apologies, came on and replaced an injured Sam Piet. I mean, we all remember him from the assist he gave to Jonathan David, but at the end of the day, I think he has a lot to gain and or lose, especially with the emergence of a player like Ishmael Kone really stepping up. I think, again, Mark Anthony Kaye is going, Sam Piet is going for sure, but between Liam Fraser, he has to play well to really solidify his spot on this World Cup roster. If not, maybe they go a little bit heavier on wing. Maybe they have another player who can cut inside. I know Larea has played midfield before. That doesn't mean that it's the option. However, it is definitely something to watch. Liam Fraser is the next player to watch in terms of what they can bring, what they may not. And goalkeeper wise, I know Crepo was called to it. I don't see Crepo starting. He has the MLS Cup coming, so odds are he's not starting, which means you're either probably starting Dane Sinclair in that game after a good first season. It's a good test for him. I know his only start for Canada was against Aruba, and he didn't get much action there, so he may get some action against Bahrain, and we'll see how that goes. But next player, Atiba has been the major injury concern we're watching, but also on that same level, Jonathan Osorio, who's probably our most creative midfielder, the closest thing to a 10 that we have. How he looks, if he's fully recovered from his post-head concussion symptoms that he's been dealing with. If he looks good, that's another midfielder that we can turn to, either to be creative on the ball or to just be a player who can really be creative in the starting lineup in that 5 midfield starting 11. And I think that's interesting because I think Osorio, Fraser, and Henry are, to me, the interesting players that I think a lot rides on this camp with those three. If those three look decent, and it's really more so Fraser and Osorio. Daniil, he has his detractors. I think he ends up going just because the loyalty piece, the brotherhood piece that they speak so much of. So I think he ends up going, whether we think he should or not. But outside of that, it's just interesting. How they play, more like I said, either a 4-5-1 or a 3-5-2 is looking like what the lineup will be. And maybe having if you go with a 4-5-1, maybe having a midfielder like Kone kind of inching up into the field. There are only 5 midfielders, which makes it interesting. Well, technically only 5 midfielders, but then you're not also taking consideration, wingbacks. So if you go in a 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2, you can probably start, you'll more likely be Henry with Johnston and Miller as your back 3. Your wingbacks being... So, a 3-5-2, as we had said previously. So, a back 3 of Henry, Miller, and Johnston. Your wingbacks being Edwards and Larea. And then your midfield being Piet, Kone, and Osorio. And then your front two being Ayo, Akinola, and Lucas Cavallini. That's if you go a 3-5-2. If you go a 4-5-1, that's where you go a back four of Johnston, Henry, Miller, and Larea. That's your back four. Your five in the midfield, that's where you would go with Frazier, Kay, Kone, Osorio, and Piet. So your holding there would be Piet and Liam Frazier, and then your boxes are 10s, your 8s and 10s. You're looking at Kay, Kone, and Osorio, and then lone striker, you have Lucas Cavallini. That's what if you go with a 3-5-1 and 3. That's a 4-5-1, and then previously one we had a 3-5-2. But guys, what do you think about this lineup overall? This whole roster overall. What would you play versus Bahrain? Again, the game is on the 11th, same day of the women playing in Brazil. So it's a double header of friendlies for Canada. Guys, get your popcorn ready and get ready to enjoy it. But let me know what you think. Do you like the roster? Who should have made it? I do think some CPL players could have made it as just a good season, even if it's just Busto and Borges. But guys, let me know in the comments. I think I've rambled on for enough now.